Hello my dudes. So this is part 2 of USA vs Canada World Cup 2018 on Kings Row. I really like this one because it kind of shows how controlling the way you use your ultimates and pressure and sort of the way you use your ultimates allows you to control the other team's ultimates as well. Even just your own abilities, and USA does this really well on this particular hold. So it's an awesome hold, a good watch. Hopefully you guys learn something. If you have any questions, any curious things, please ask me in the comments below after. Or if you think I've missed something, definitely let me know as well. I love feedback. You know, helps me get better. But other than that, let's get on with it.
Skills. Get a Discord on him and have space just kind of harass him in the sky a little bit, but...
So I just want to... Oh, I missed it. I had one chance
Discord
and I missed
on him and have space just kind of
very quick.
harass him in the sky a little bit, but...
There we go. Okay. So see note here, he immediately just double checks this corner. This is just one of those nice little habits to get into regardless of what rank you're at. Just double check corners, doesn't hurt you. You know, it makes you know that you're safe, and if a Junkrat or Sinatra's Doomfist is hiding there, they immediately know, and then they can just go and have at him instead of them getting like the cheeky kills on Team Canada.
They're gonna play Mercy Zen.
Not that people will do that often, but it's just there's no harm in not doing it.
So this is a support combo. We don't see that much anymore.
Shawfall's just like immediately running to exactly where he needs to be to kind of set up for this fight. There's no wasted time. He's not running with the pack. He's so far ahead of them. Because he's Sombra, but it doesn't matter if you're Sombra, Tracer, Genji. You just need to go to where you need to be and set up real early, so that the moment your tank wants to dive, or the moment you see an opportunity to dive, you're already ready to go. So don't spend more time setting up. Spend more time being ready. Always be ready. And he chooses not to sort of jump this gap, which Sombra can when she's in Viz. He's just doing a little bit of extra scouting just to double check where everyone is before he goes ahead.
More looks like potentially Bonnie going back change. It's probably gonna be Ana. Yep, so Ana's in here.
From both sides, obviously Barney can do much more from far away with this particular pit. Space.
So this is just a nice little hack just to kind of start the engagement. I feel like the fact that XQC kind of didn't immediately jump in sort of points out that maybe it wasn't communicated properly, or the tanks weren't ready for it. It just looks a little bit awkward and a little bit slow, to be honest, and it gives Space enough time to immediately just walk straight backwards into the streets, and there's nothing that anyone can do about the hack anymore. There's a good sort of 3-4 seconds wasted before XQC actually jumps in. I don't know if he was just really far back, couldn't make it over there. I didn't really see it on the camera. And then this bubble, I'm assuming it's really just to avoid the hack from hydration. I'm assuming hydration was there trying to hack him. He just immediately put the bubble down, just to save himself. It also kind of stops Raucus from getting any sort of damage on agilities here. Further back, he could probably hit Crimzo and Barney, but other than that, there's no one else he can really hit because of this bubble.
Push it now. The dive is on. No.
I also want to point out this little jump. So two things kind of enabled this jump. One, Space can't do anything because he's still hacked. Muma's, I think, just used his jump not too long ago. Unless he
also got hacked up, by the way.
Yeah, okay. He did. I'm assuming Muma didn't quite have his jump ready yet. I didn't actually see Muma use his jump the second time, but it kind of looks that way. He didn't have the jump ready to go the moment he needed it. In saying that, one really good thing that XQC did was he made sure he landed in between Raucus and the doorway. That way he kind of avoids he avoids Raucus being able to get away, basically, and Moth being able to come back and heal him up and pocket him for the damage that XQC is trying to do. So that's very good. Even though, and the other thing is, XQC knows he's about to trade his life for this. Space got hacked a while ago. Yes, he was still hacked when he went to jump, but the hack's about to wear off. There's no way XQC gets out of this dive by himself. There's just no ways. The one thing that's really good though is he traded his life for Raucus's, and that's to be honest, that's a worthy trade. You kind of give up. What you do give up is you give up your life. You give up a bit more ult charge, but your objective at the end of the day is to cap this point right now. And the trade-off is that Raucus is going to take a lot longer to get back to the point than XQC is. It also forces attention onto him because Moth isn't going to kill XQC by himself. So not only is Raucus dead, Moth goes to look at him, Muma jumps up there, and Space is diving up there too. So one person just took the attention of 4 people and killed one of them. That's a pretty big play by XQC, to be fair. Plus you remove kind of your win condition at the end of the day is removing Raucus because it's 30% extra damage with that Discord Orb. So you now have it, they don't. You don't have a main tank, but you've still got your damage, you've still got your off tank.
So both of the Sombras really having an impact, but Raucus goes down early. It is dangerous.
And you can see Canada start to kind of snowball this point.
Pays for it with his life. It's a 5v5 now. Agility's very close to a Dragon Blade with all the shurikens he's been throwing up close in Sinatra.
This is one fight and Agility is already 89% to ult. That's pretty massive.
Also
I don't actually know who he's been hitting this entire time, but that's massive.
Canada
Massive.
Can walk in here and know that there's not really that one-shot potential present on that USA roster.
Same with Moth. Moth has been doing some work, keeping everyone alive.
Agility's can control the high ground.
I'm assuming that's keeping alive whoever Agilities was bullying.
He can blade if he needs to. It's a strong position. There definitely will be a recontest though. Yeah, it's going to be Muma.
Canada, they're kind of just basically what they did. So I'll go back just to kind of point it out again because I was talking about Agility's ult.
Is also missing.
But pretty much at this point, not one Team USA person is on the point or trying to save the point or staggering on. There's no one in sight. There's no one in direct sight of the entire Canadian team. They've all just, I think at the moment they're in the library in the building, possibly in alleyway back here, being super safe. But what they're doing is they're just waiting for not Sinatra to come back because he's just died, but they're waiting for Raucus to come back, and then with Raucus, the 5 of them can get a more quality fight onto this point, rather than just staggering on one by one, just all the time, trying to stop the point from swapping over. Whereas if they do that, Canada, like I said, they'll just snowball that fight. So they stop, they come back, they trade time on the point for a more quality fight. So they're still trading. At the end of the day, this is a resource of USA. This is still a resource, right? And you can use that because you know Canada has to take it at the end of the day. So they're trading this resource which is time. So time on the point for time to set up. That's what they're trading. And because they're trading that, they're now going to come back in. They're going to have more people. They're going to be more prepared for whatever's going to happen or whatever they want to do. Rather than, like I said, just filtering through here, get off my point, don't touch it, I need to protect this point with everything that I have. That's not how this works. That's not how you recontest a point properly. This is a really good example of it.
Can walk in here and know that there's not really that one-shot potential present on that USA roster. Agility's can control the high ground. He can blade if he needs to. It's a strong position. There definitely will be a recontest though. Yeah, it's going to be Muma getting the benefits of it.
And so Muma just immediately gets another boost so that he can take space back more easily for his team so that the re-engagement can happen. The other thing this does, and I pointed this out in Game 1 on Oasis, is it gives Muma a lot more ult charge than he would normally be able to get. That way they can all kind of, if they need to, catch up to the fact that, or Muma can catch up to the fact that he didn't, they didn't win that fight, he didn't get to do a lot. He's still ahead of XQC, but now he's going to be really far ahead of XQC.
A nano boost as he goes in deep.
A nano boost in this patch just builds so fast. If you're healing properly, you're nading well, it just builds so quickly.
Agility's now going to use his Dragon Blade.
Excuse me, sorry. This peel from Agility basically peels that blade. He pulls that blade. He does Agility thing, gets blade, pulls it. But I suspect he was just assuming where the USA supports were just based on sort of this movement.
If he needs to, it's a strong position. There definitely will be a recontest though.
He immediately dashes, and I think he assumed they'd be kind of somewhere around here. I'm not sure if if someone was scouting below him for him. He does end up finding Raucus though, but the peel from space is just so good. Raucus doesn't even get touched. And space gets significantly low, so I know it was him. So that was a really good peel.
Yeah, US just trying to take cover inside his building right now, and they've given over a tick to Canada. They're going to have to push out eventually. Sinatra tries to get sneaky from the back line, and it's worked. Bunny's down. Those biotic grenades now no.
I'm just going to go back.
Both Sombras down from either side of Julius. Doesn't get anything.
So this is, again, USA, they're basically, this is like a mini reset. They can't fully reset because they can't commit all the way backwards without being heavily pushed. But at the end of the day, Space and Mooma are both half health. Both teams have lost their Sombras. Canada is much healthier right now in terms of not necessarily ult charge. Exactly. No one's going to get their ult for this immediate next fight. Maybe Mooma, to be fair. But they're all full health. Note's full health. Barney, they're in a much better situation, Canada. So USA resetting kind of sucks Canada to move deeper into the point. And they actually end up creating like a little bit of a trap for Canada.
Yeah, US just trying to take cover inside his building right now. They've given over.
So you can kind of see they're now supports are still being a little bit wary. Well, that was a terrible circle. I don't know what just happened there. Note's still making sure they're staying safe because he really wants to play a counter dive with these three. Because both their backline are really immobile, Note is really kind of chained to them. He's on a bit of a chain. His pretty much whole existence is protect these two people. That's his whole existence. And to an extent, Space is kind of like that as well. Or realistically, I would think he should be for these two. But throughout the map, he kind of isn't. They basically just say, forget it, good luck. We've got Doomfist, so we're just going to go real heavy on these two. See what we get. Because of just the one-shot potential. It's very difficult for Note to actually protect them from him. But yeah, so they basically get sucked in, Note still being safe, and then Team USA do like this triangle dive. So Mooma's there, Sinatra's there, and you don't see it on the screen yet, but there is a space down here. And they do this, and they move it. And originally it looks like Crimzo is the target. But like I was saying, because of Sinatra's one-shot potential, only Sinatra goes for him. The other two tanks, so Mooma and Space, both go for Barney.
They're gonna have to push.
And Note can do absolutely nothing about Barney. Barney's dead regardless of what happens. So he makes the right decision, uses the DM on Sinatra. Sinatra can't get any damage out onto Crimzo and saves Crimzo's life. Just. But I'm a big fan of this kind of three-man dive where realistically they have like one angle to go, and that's backwards, and they've got to go round a statue to get there. So that's very good in my opinion. The other thing that kind of happens here is XQC uses bubble in front of Raucus simply to stop the Discord from coming through and them being able to immediately explode someone. Even for example, Crimzo has a Discord here, he's dead. So that was not sure whether it was lucky or XQC just reacted really well. So that was quite good.
Eventually, Sinatra tries to get sneaky from the back line, and it's worked. Bunny's down.
Yeah. The other mistake from Crimzo, I think he needed to pretty much just immediately go backwards. By going here, you're gonna walk into Mooma, and it's either you're either dead or it's just not. Sitting back here at such low health when you know there are people that were just on the other side of this statue, is just a mistake and probably awareness. I'd say, I think it's awareness. just by the way he moves, he doesn't react until Mim is actually
They're gonna have to push out eventually. Sinatra tries to get sneaky from the back line, and it's worked. Bunny's down.
The one thing it does do though is he's actually charging a 5-ball there. So let me just go back.
Push out eventually. Sinatra tries to get sneaky from the back line, and it's worked. Bunny's down.
Charges the 5-ball. Maybe he is actually going for the Transcendence here. That could be what his play is. I don't agree with him going for this Transcendence though, as much as I also don't agree with Note going that way.
Those bionic grenades now no longer a threat.
The reason I don't really like it is because Barney's dead. Your team was low. They kind of had the drop on you, and you're wanting to go forward on a 5v6 with transits. I just think USA has it took too long to get to that point, and now USA has the means to just get out and just avoid this fight. They don't have to fight you when you've got trans. You're trying to force something that's really not there, to be honest. And then the other thing that happens is you're going to trans 6v5, and the trans will last until Barney comes out of spawn, to be fair, because he's got about 5 seconds left. But it doesn't give him enough time to come back and be impactful to this next fight. So I think you accept a loss here, you save your ultimates, you reset, and you come out fresh for the next push. Acknowledge what you need to get rid of, what you want to keep, that kind of stuff. But the other thing as well, but on Teams USA's side, by pressuring out this Transcendence, they now have created a win condition for their next fight, which is pretty much going to be hydration. I mean, he's at 65, there's still people alive, this fight's not over. But already, if Team USA win this fight, Hydration's next victim with an EMP is just going to be Crimzo, and Crimzo can't do anything about that because there's no longer a Transcendence on the field to deal with it.
Come forward with the Transcendence, and Mock is hoping to get a bio of his own into that.
And you can kind of see Team Canada end up they kind of don't know what they want to be doing. Crimzo used it, and now he wants to get out, so he's used it to leave and save that extra 10 seconds. That's a really good bubble from XQC, by the way.
Nice little bubble placement there.
And the reason I say that is because it's really kind of a standard interaction from Winstons, but I don't really see it enough. If you are a Winston, you see a Doom trying to meteor strike, generally a support or just in general, you can bubble over your support, making sure. Let me just draw a little diagram. So that's kind of what the Doomfist looks like, right? The Doomfist ultimate. If you bubble over this center bit, all this extra area doesn't actually happen. There's no damage gets there. If you, as an example, give me a red back. So let's say this is the center. That's the outside bit, and let's say your Zen is here, for example. What you can do is you can just bubble over this Zen, and then he'll be fine. The damage won't go through that bubble, unless the bubble is very much weakened. So that's quite a good use of the bubble, and that's just in general, just so everyone knows.
Radiating damage from that ability, but he can't get away. It's another 1-for-1 trade. It's a scrappy affair if I've ever seen one. But the US still have 5 players up. Hydration narrowly winning that duel against.
Pretty standard position for a monkey to be in. Kind of just holding an angle. If they want to ignore him, he just jumps their back line. But they don't. They push him out, which is
so many combos between Sure4 and Note throughout the weekend.
They kind of go set up again. Look at XQC immediately going to set up. Hey, that's not my red. XCC immediately going to set up. You see Sure4's in the back line or going behind streets already.
On the high ground as XCC's trying to work his way up.
It's just immediately to the next fight, regardless of what happened. Next fight, where do we need to be? Where are we going? It's very fast.
He did get a pick onto Raucus a little bit earlier. He's going to get up to the high ground yet again. Has Primal Rage.
Good little jump up by XQC there to try and get, I think it's Moth up there. Oh, it's Raucus. Mumid dives backwards.
Get up to the high ground yet again.
Even though they're kind of focusing on a counter dive back here, Hydration's still looking at the win condition.
Yeah, has Primal Rage.
And I mean, if Barney hits this shot, this is massive. I don't think that EMP goes off if he hits this shot.
Earlier. He's going to get up to the high ground yet again. Has Primal Rage to live through it this time.
EMP, Barney tries.
Good work to immediately start pocketing. But one thing, and this is probably more of a lower elo thing to be fair, that I generally find, because of Crimzo's positioning, he's very easy to pocket for Barney. When you are trying to focus down a target and they're being pocketed, always go for the pocket. It's such a simple rule that should be kept that people do not apply it enough. So this is actually a really good target swap from Sinatra. So he comes in, sees Barney there. Well, this is him down there, sorry. Sees Barney, immediately just goes for Barney because it's the easier kill for one, and two, it's the person that's pocketing the original target. Oh well, that's the wrong people. There we go. Person that's pocketing the original target. So it's a really good target swap. It's a very simple target swap. You kill the pocketer before you kill the pocketee. Crimzo's position here though does eventually just get him killed. Because I'm assuming, to be honest, he was most likely a little bit tunneled, trying to do damage to agilities, possibly getting a Harmony and Discord Orb over this way to get rid of space, not agilities. A Harmony onto space, a Harmony onto agilities, and a Discord onto space. Just to try and get rid of the mech early. Because of this little interaction, which is good while you're kind of stuck there for a second, but now you've got time to try and get out of there. By sitting here, you're not giving yourself a chance to live, really. At least if you try to get out, either this way or that way, for example. Probably not that way. But if you're trying to get out this way, then at least you give yourself a bit of a chance for Sinatra to, one, lose focus of where you've gone, which is unlikely to happen. Two, stuff up his mechanic, again unlikely to happen. Or three, give yourself a bit more of a chance to try and blast him down with a 5-ball when he lands and tries to aim his rocket fist. A little bit more likely to happen. When you're in this situation and you're kind of tunneling down there, you're never going to get him because you're too focused on doing damage before you die. You're also guaranteeing your own death because he hasn't used rocket fist. Rocket fist yet. And he's just going to use that and blast you into oblivion. So the idea is not to go to a place where you're guaranteeing your life, because you probably can't, but you're going to a place where you're giving yourself the highest chance of survival with different factors coming into play. So every decision in Overwatch is it's a little bit like a tree, right? So there's all these different branches that you can go to, and each of them have a percentage number on the end of them, and you just have to pick which one is going to be the most likely for your survival. And we'll just say 2. So then your best choice is going to be this one. It's still not a high chance. That's still 50% chance that you'll die there. So that's kind of what I'm talking about, where it's this is okay if you just want to do damage here and get space out of mech, and if that's going to be your highest percentage to win this fight, that's fine. I think your better percentage is to back off and try and survive, and then kill Sinatra as he comes in for a rocket fist. Or he'll leave you alone and try and help space with agilities. Or get rid of Note. There's a few different things that you can happen, but if you go down here, you've 100% lost this fight.
Doesn't connect it, and unfortunately he gets hacked up. Sinatra finds both supports on his own, stripped of their abilities and obviously their life force after that.
I mean, Sinatra just absolutely pops off here anyway. He just does.
Another messy fight in which
he's just a very good mechanical Doomfist.
But still holding strong for the time being.
We'll take a look at Sinatra's POV. You get these players, the squishies without any of their abilities, you lump them up. And Doomfist can do a lot of work. You do have nano boost here for Bonnie.
Good little scouting from Shore4 there. Very unfortunate to be touched by Moth.
Oh, he saw him! Cheeky!
I probably would have thought that was actually a little bit lazy from Shore4, if I'm not wrong. So
work you do have nano.
This isn't great because I can't really tell how quickly he saw the Ana. But here, an Anna's movement from this angle, I mean, he may have thought he was going all the way, but from this angle, an Anna's movement is very much kind of WS, not as much AD. And the reason for that is you can sit back here and it makes it very difficult for people to see you anyway. So you don't need to go you don't need to go like across, you can go back and forth. This is probably just, I don't know, maybe a bit of a mental error, not thinking. Maybe Canada scrimmed someone who didn't do that. Maybe he's just not used to this, not used to it in that particular place yet. But I think in this you just need to leave this way, keep running. If the Anna keeps going with you, then you've got that much bigger room in that library, I guess, or in the light room. That's kind of much bigger than this corridor that you can just kind of scoot around her and come back. And this is just safety first kind of thing. I mean, it's unfortunate, but still safety first. It's those little things.
Back for the US, he's back with his team. Oh dear. Oh, he saw him! Cheeky! Sure for.
The one good thing I will say is, even though it was probably a bad situation for Shore4 to be in, it wasn't horrible, but not great. He still goes out of his way to get some sort of value for the use of his translocator. So he's specifically waits for Muma to jump. It's either
oh, he saw him! Jeez.
It's either Muma jumps here, uses his bubble, which I wouldn't recommend, or just takes a lot of damage to the face while Shore4 walks backwards, or and just keeps shooting. So he gets the leap out before he translocates.
Yeah, has to translocate out there. That's a good.
So it's a good trade-off at the end of the day, because now you've got 5 seconds, 6 seconds of a Winston that's not available for defense right now to jump around.
For the USA, it means it's harder to get that EMP onto as many targets now. Agility's into the back line. Shore4 finds Sinatra here, and hydration's down, so now it's just a one somber affair. But space drops in.
Interesting. So, I mean, this isn't great for analysis. So I went through this one before to make sure I could really understand kind of what happened. So basically, Sinatra goes in for Note earlier. He's dead now. But like a tiny bit early before Agility's dashed back here, Sinatra went in for Note to kind of keep him occupied, knowing that Note can't block any of Sinatra's damage. So the idea would have been to knock him up, maybe blast him into a wall, try and get him out of mech as fast as possible, while Muma and Hydration go in for the back line of Barney and Crimzo. And you can see they got Barney pretty effectively. Well, Muma did anyway. And they're trying to get Crimzo. Note's speeding back. It's a good look. It's a good dive. It's a good counter dive as well. But they trade sort of one support for I believe they're going to get Hydration here. So they trade one support for 2 DPS. But Crimzo is then forced, if you have a look, he's forced himself into a bad position. Instead of being, and this is why the camera angle's a little bit off, because I'm not 100% sure why Crimzo is standing where he is. I feel like he's kind of didn't just kind of rush to get out of there. And he can't really stay in there because I believe Monkey is over here somewhere. But sorry, let me just double check that again. No, he's not. He's right there. So yeah, I'm really not sure why he's come out and not just immediately gone that way. He's kind of walking. Looks like he's kind of not walked in a straight line. He's kind of done this. And that, when someone's in front of you, is bad, because it's going to be easier for him to aim, even though he's going to die. And now he's in a situation where Muma's back. He's guaranteed dead here, pretty much regardless of what happens, because he was too slow to get out and get around that corner. The other option is potentially try and stick in hotel, and fight them that way, let Note come in and help, and then XQC is coming back, Muma jumps in, but you've still got the peel from Note. So I think either you commit to staying in hotel, or you commit to getting out. The moment there's a little bit of indecision, you end up in this sort of situation. And there's a really good nade from Moth. He hits. He unfortunately doesn't get Note. I thought he would have. But he does get XQC, and he does get Crimzo, as you can see. So it was a really good nade.
And hydration's down, so now it's just a one somber affair.
That biotic nade as well was really kind of made possible because he would have had the knowledge that DM would have either been recently used, possibly out of DM because of when he had to rush back and he's trying to save Crimzo from hydration. So knowing that gives him some pretty good confidence to make sure that he can throw that without it being wasted. So that's good. That is good.
But space drops in
and
over
this
the
bomb
top.
is a really good bomb location as well. To position it kind of back here forces them to go forward, or forces Agilities and Note to go forward, in which Muma was standing basically right here. You go into line of sight of Moth and Raucous, really. The other place to put the bomb would have been kind of like just immediately above this gate, so you kind of get that effect. In which case, I don't think they can get out from that, regardless of what happens or where they go.
Moth, that was beautiful from Moth. Fantastic bio-nade and a finish on XQC. Honestly, the US weren't in a great spot there. If Moth doesn't get that double, Shawful comes in, EMPs them back into the 1910s.
Now Note still demeched. Has to just wait to get this Diva mech back. Under a minute to go here. You're gonna have the Nano Blade.
This next fight is going to be kind
Canada.
of...
Got that Transcendence as well.
This will be the most obvious form
can hit this
of Team USA controlling Canada's
EMP and connect with
ultimates.
Raucous, no Transcendence, plus a Nano Blade. Do you think that closes this point out for Canada?
So kind of have a look. There's Muma, doesn't want to ult.
So far.
It doesn't have ult, but doesn't want to get hacked there, obviously. Because then he's just got to walk away.
Muma?
Instead, Shawfall showed himself, though. Which means Muma can jump and get EMP'd. He can do nothing and just sit there. He can jump, not get EMP'd, and then use his ult to create all this space for Sinatra, and you know, obviously hydration as well. And with 33 seconds left, you don't really want a giant monkey in your face who's going to be splitting up your team the entire time. You know, trying to segregate probably your supports. And so the option that Shawfall goes with, and Muma forces this out of him, is EMP. He only gets, as far as I can tell, he only gets Muma with it.
Forward. It's going to be a reactive.
And they're going to kill Muma for it. But because the EMP went off only on Muma,
doesn't want to be hacked.
You look behind and Crimzo has got Sinatra on him using,
it's going to be a reactive.
There it is, using abilities. And so now Crimzo all of a sudden is forced to use Transcendence, and you use it very early. He gets very little value out of this fight that's happening with his Transcendence. No one else on Team USA has realistically committed to this fight except for these two. And there's been very little damage done to the rest of the team except for on Crimzo, who's about to die if he doesn't use it.
EMP Shawfall, now Raucous is still staying.
So Note gets a little bit low, but at the end of the day, it's nothing really to worry about. They save him. Agilities pulls out Blade. Unfortunately, Raucous doesn't pop his Transcendence. And my assumption is that Moth told him that he'd hit the sleep.
Forward. It's going to be a reactive EMP Shawfall.
Which is fair enough. He's in a small corridor. He's going towards Moth, and he had a dash up. So probably the assumption from Moth was that he was going to dash forward and then try and left click and slash. And that's why you see the dart going that way. Because what would have happened is normally Genjis are just in a habit of it, and they just immediately shift forward onto their target, slash, and then they can shift to the next one. If he had have shifted, Agilities would have been done. This is just like a bit of a mind game, basically. Who was going to pop their shift first? And it just turns out Agilities had knew that he was close enough that he just didn't have to.
Still stays in the back.
And just gets that immediately, turns around. So that's unfortunate, but at the same time, it's good that Raucus didn't pop it because he probably wasn't going to make it to Moth regardless. And the other thing is every second that Raucus refuses to use Transcendence is kind of an extra 6 seconds later on that Team USA will be able to have their Transcendence available when Team Canada doesn't, and choose the fight that they want to take with it. So Crimso's trans isn't going to clean up this fight because there's too many people. There's one person who can get away still. There is one person who's invisible and they're not going to kill. Space is going to walk away. Raucus is already up on high ground. Sinatra's still got his ult if he needs it. And they're kind of still... I mean, they're on the point. They're still contesting point. But this was a forced Transcendence. It wasn't one that they wanted to take. They had to do it. And so using your trans second means your team will come out at the end of the fight with more health than what this team will, because you'll get more free damage on at the end of the day. So that's kind of what's happening.
But it doesn't matter. He hasn't committed Transcendence.
I mean, it's not. He still uses it very quickly afterwards, but it's at least sort of 3-4 seconds into Crimso's one. So it's 3-4 seconds that Raucus will have after theirs is down.
This fight, it might have been a problem because Moth is now missing. Agilities gets a nice little bio nade, and Crimso's down in the backline after it came out of Transcendence. How are the USA turning this around? They still got some plays, but they need to get back to the point.
And then it was just, I mean, I couldn't really see what was happening, but on the kill feed it's just Sinatra doing Sinatra things on Doomfist, just massacring their backline, really.
Came out of Transcendence. How are the USA turning this around?
This is probably my biggest gripe, and I think if XQC had a thought about this more, he would do this differently. He jumps onto Raucus at the end of this fight on an uncontested point with 14 seconds left, and Team Canada coming back from this angle with pretty much most of his team dead at the moment. I worked this out. If XQC had have sat on this point with two people on... Sorry, I'll start again. 2 people on point A of King's Row, each tick is 7 seconds. When this point became uncontested, there was about 3.5 to 4 seconds left of this point to go through if XQC didn't jump, if there were still 2 people on the point. It takes Team USA 3 seconds to get there to come off the hack, and then an extra probably about half a second to 3/4 of a second for Sinatra to charge his fist and get onto the point. Now XQC left it, so there's now 0 chance that this will tick over before Sinatra gets back. This jump, one, was wasteful because Raucus was already rotating, so he got very little value out of it anyway, besides just take a fair bit of damage, and he did a little bit of damage, to be fair. 2, it also it's wasting time now. He gave up pressure on the point and pressure for these guys to get back, even though they were doing it anyway, to chase something that was even if he hits, isn't going to be like a tide turner, considering they're coming back with 3 people and then another 2 coming back from this angle, another 1. So if XUC just sits on this point for the rest of it, I think Canada cap this. They still lose this next fight, regardless. It's just what it is. They're staggering on, but at least you give yourself an extra time bank, so that you can continue to push now through streets. I mean, at the end of the day, you don't win off kills. It doesn't matter if you have 100 kills if you never capped the point. You know what I mean? So potentially XQC could have really done nothing, and Team Canada could have they would have just barely capped it. And if they didn't cap it, it would have been absolute sheer milliseconds, like single-digit milliseconds. It would have been extremely close. So that's a massive mistake in my opinion on XQC's part, and I think someone needed to tell him not to jump that. and just accept the fact that they're both tanks. Use a bubble for this to save yourself damage-wise if you're worried about taking too much damage. If he starts coming close, then go for it. Because he could probably just walk to point. I get that, but he didn't show the signs of doing it, and this jump was just premature. So that's probably why Canada, that was another reason why Canada didn't get this point at this last second when it was almost gifted to them. Excuse me, when it was almost gifted to them that way. But basically, Canada never really get to use their ults in the way that they want to. Canada's ults were always dictated throughout this entire sort of 4 minutes. Not one ult, except for with the exception of probably agilities, was used the way that Team Canada wanted it to be used. Possibly XQC got one off, but I didn't notice it, to be honest. Did he actually get one off? Yes, he did. He got one off, but I don't think it was very impactful. So they're always dictated by USA's aggression or by lack of communication to when a fight is over. There was very little comboing, even to the point, and I'll show you what I mean. Barney still has ult this entire time. Barney never used ult once. Didn't combine it with agilities, didn't combine it with XQC. Didn't put it out. There was never a proactive. There was never ever a proactive support used by
Canada just not able to use those ultimates that they've been so good at comboing.
That was really
throughout this tour. Does get hacked in that fight. Mitch got
Mercy. When you fist or Hammond to happen though. Look at how close that contest bar was. Movement gets nano boost.
Really nice.
Let's go to the Canada defense, please.
Himself is like,
there we go.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, so Canada's running a bit more of a standard. I say standard, but it's standard these
That's why
days.
he's out here, I guess, representing his home country.
Composition with Orisa,
Canada.
Junkrat, Widow, and this comp is kind of designed to slow the other team down. The idea is to stop them from being able to jump around and move really fast and utilize Lucio's speed boost really well. It's designed to slow all that down so that you can fight in a way that you want to fight based on what they're doing.
Needs to be a full hold
the
here
other
from
thing
them.
I noticed is that Team USA is using sort of the same comp that they used in Oasis, which was, push hard from the front, Mimba pushes hard from the back, or flanks from the side. And Canada really struggled with that composition. So this is sort of one of those things where it's like, on attack, Team USA is kind of just doing the same thing that was working before because Canada couldn't really deal with it back then, so why not just give it another go, just to see what happens? Because worst comes to worst, they do this, they hide another team comp from them that maybe Team Canada won't get to practice against before they have to verse it in the next map.
Love it this weekend.
So I actually think Jake was talking about it in the Philly University versus XL2 finals, and he called it blocking. I didn't know that was what it was called. I just used to say don't fix what's not broken. And that was
didn't
kind of good
expect
enough.
to see it in a match.
Yeah, that's same
so
situation.
meaningful. But
Also, Team USA is using this route just to avoid as much spam as possible, get up to the high ground really quickly, really easily, and just jump over the gap. However, XQC does a really good job about shooting that Holt at a kind of an awkward time for space, and he shoots it under them, which is really good. It pulls them all down as soon as he sort of triggers it. So that was really good. And I think, to be honest, Muma jumping up here with the rest of the team, I think that kind of defeats the purpose of a Winston here. I'm not sure if that was sort of the original plan or the idea. I would have thought it was for Muma to kind of go around the back and block this extra high ground off from them retreating to. So you've got pressure, a lot of pressure coming from this side, and then enough pressure coming from this side to maybe finish people off. But he seems to push up here. So I just think this was not what the original plan was. Muma just had to make some adjustments on the fly.
Third supportive choice.
Going this way as well, I mean, this leap into this comp is always going to be very difficult. with what you've got,
On the
considering
top there is the
agility is
USA,
sitting right there, and you're making it very easy for him just to shoot down
they're
one.
taking their time. Now they're sort of below this setup of Canada, which is definitely going to make the Canadians a little bit nervous. They're going to have to back up and give some of this high ground away to the US.
I mean, they don't really finish
Where's the USA?
Team USA or anything like that. They just stop them from coming up, give them some more
Now
time.
replacing Moira, who was off from that
And
third
USA just rotate around to
supportive
get back
choice.
onto that high ground.
Dropping it on the top there is
Again,
the
agility is
USA,
right
but they're
there,
taking
just
their time. Now they're
shoot
sort of
grenades
below
down
this
there.
setup of Canada, which is definitely going to make the Canadians
Which is a lot of pressure on
a little bit
Sinatra's
nervous.
shield.
They're going to have to back up and give some of this high ground away to the US. Uma, oh, he's lurking. He's actually running to two plays. If he can get short for it,
That's unlucky not to get short for there.
he's got the orb of harmony on him.
I like kind of... Muma's almost like a bit of what we call like a gopher, where it's kind of like you can go wherever you want as long as you're kind of doing something.
He doesn't get away. Oh, he was looking for it.
And he's kind of just always separate. He's like a lone agent, basically. He's his own man, does whatever he wants. As long as you're putting pressure on their backline one way or the other. Otherwise, the rest of the team seems to not really care what he's doing. Just come back to us if you need heals seems to be kind of the call there. And then every time he gets on their backline, Sinatra, hydration, space, they
Quick
all...
melee to finish the job. On the ground, though, Sinatra's...
Didn't get my pen out properly. As soon as he kind of goes to make space, they all start making a play. So it's still coordinated, it's just he's coordinating with them, but not together, if that makes sense. He's coordinating together, but not with them. So this is like a unit, and then this is a unit.
Oh, he was looking for it. He needed a punch, a quick...
And agilities, look how much... He's already got his ult charge. I mean, the amount of healing coming out from Raucus and damage coming out for agilities because of the comp that USA is running into that is just massive.
Melee to finish the job. On the ground, though, Sinatra's found...
I like that little extra grenade.
He was looking for it. He needed a punch, a quick melee to finish the job. On the ground, though...
So this little extra grenade that he shoots out is to guarantee that no one's coming through this hallway and chasing him down. And that's just like, he's literally just done some free scouting over there. That's what that was. And now he's going to rip the tire knowing that no one's coming for him. So he knows he's safe even though his camera's not going to be on him.
XQC, so both teams are lacking main takes, and this is going to be a very important riptide. It drops in. It's two supports as well for agilities. That's going to stem the bleed for the time being.
You still have Sinatra on the point, though, here with Muma in space. You got these big tanks. Space currently D-Mac. Note's going to have to use the double shot throw up the sky.
Okay!
Grimzo, though,
That's what he's doing. He doesn't, like, this is... Realistically, it's
Canada,
kind of
hold
unnecessary for him to do
Not a
that.
tick there for Team USA.
And it's actually just going to take
Some
them longer to
changes
go
right
back
away.
and set
So
up.
you move off of
Not
the
that that's a big
Sinatra
deal. I mean,
Reinhardt.
he's got some time.
He will
But
play Genji now.
that's
like
really,
he's
I mean... Did he had ult?
Grim's
Didn't he?
Mac.
Yeah,
Note's
he
going
had
to
ult.
have to
He
use
didn't
the
need to do
double.
that at all. That's
Some
just him.
changes right away. So
Proving a
you move
point.
off of the Sinatra Reinhardt. So he will play Genji now. Looks like he's going back to the spawn, potentially even changing it again. It's, okay, so Sinatra will play Wrecking Ball here.
So
You're gonna have
I really like these three tanks together. I think this is going to become kind of a little bit meta, where it's three dive tanks, either a Sombra or something else, and then Ana Lucio is probably going to be the big one. I've been running these three tanks together with some of my teams. One, it's actually really fun to run. It's kind of, depending on who you're versing, can be really easy. But other teams who have a bit more methodical do cause some troubles, and there's some good strategies you can make around this. For example, this person can be very flexible. You don't have to force a Sombra into this. If you want to go, more damage in terms of like having a soldier sit back here and then swapping Moth out for maybe a Zen, you could do something like that and just run like a 3-3. I've seen people pull out like a Reaper, and they just go ham sandwich, put in a Moira here, and they just do a 6-man dive. So you can do all sorts of different things. But I really like this composition. I think this is where the meta's basically heading.
We love to see it. Geronimo! Oh, actually gets proof.
Good little halt there from XQC.
That perhaps pulled Sinatra away from the high ground. Now he feels...
The other thing is, it's a good composition for this, against this comp in particular. You've got someone who can't really move that fast. You've got agilities who's kind of counting on the fact that you're going to have armor, plus you're kind of all in a group. Here it's like you've got a lot of health pools still, but now he's really got to aim a lot better. And projectile aiming those Junkrat grenades can be very difficult.
It's a bit sheepish, man. Sets himself up on the point and says, well,
And it's still, the other thing is, it's still, like I said, same health pools, but it's the same presence. It's just, again, it's just harder.
Now, may as well do something. Boomer very low, forced to back away. Credit to Space.
Good little follow-up from Space to go sit with Moomer in this corner to make sure that you can't be pushed by Note. That's just good
But
teamwork.
diligently follow.
Maintains LOS with
The wings
Raucus,
to keep him alive.
even though Raucus then, gets a little bit of damage.
Give me them
done to him, he's
darts,
okay.
fam.
But now they get to reset and go again.
High ground. You can see the Hammonds in the background trying to do some work.
Good little jump, forced out Barney's ult, so that's good.
But execute.
Notices Raucus and
You
Shawfall,
see, very hard to shift on the point.
And
The
he'll
Orisa's
push
not
them
going
as well.
anywhere. Boomer though.
and now we've got a second ult out. So Moomer just decided that these two needed to use their ults, and that's what he did. He forced them to use ults again. He's taking space aggressively. He's putting pressure on people he knows has ults, which he doesn't want to deal with in the next fight. And that's kind of what this is. They're putting pressure on people who can potentially save the rest of their team. Next time they have a fight, considering there are 3 ults in here. You're probably not realistically planning for it unless something happens. But Moomer he's getting so much value that if it was me on this team, I'd be telling USA, we've got to flip the switch, let's use some ults. They pumped out too many unnecessarily, we could win this.
This is where it could get a little bit scary. The Transcenders popped on the high ground by
Crimzo gets
Crimzo.
absolutely
And
nothing
Moomer says
out
no,
of this,
we're not giving your
besides
team
the attention that
the
Moomer
rest of this
wants.
healing.
Plus Barney has to use it. Plus Barney has to come back and pocket him.
Now I'm going to chase you down.
I think what I would have preferred to see from Team Canada
The point. The Orisa.
is Barney's already used his ult. Everyone else is kind of okay except for in this room. So sit in this room with
This is not
Crimzo.
going anywhere.
Keep him alive.
Moomer though, primary.
You're not going to get killed by Moomer
This is where it could get a little bit
unless he gets the corner on
scary.
you.
The Transcenders popped on.
You keep Crimzo alive this whole time. Again, Note's starting to get hurt. XQC's taken a little bit of poke, but generally the health pool is still in your favor. So keep Crimzo's trans. Don't overlap it with Barney. Force Barney to pocket Crimzo, and then after this is over, if you still need it, then you can jump off to point and you'll have trans to use to kind of swing the fight back in your favor.
On the high ground by Crimzo.
Or continue the fight in your favor, seeing as you got space out.
And Moomer says no, we're not giving your team the rest of this healing. Now I'm going to chase you down. And Moomer's spending his whole time in the backline being the aggressor here. Probably a nice change for him over what he's been playing.
I also would have preferred, so if I go back a bit before this,
In the background trying to.
I was just thinking, XUC is kind of just in the middle of the point here. I think I would have preferred him to be playing sort of these corners, these back corners, because he's playing in a position where there's space on his back. You know what I mean? There's nowhere for him to go if they push this shield. There's nowhere for him to hide behind. He doesn't have very high heals right now. I think that positionally for XQC is a bit of a mistake.
High ground.
And if they choose to,
You
they
see
can kind of just
Hammonds
surround him
in
and
the
go for him.
background trying to do some work. But XQC very hard to shift on the point. The Orisa's not going anywhere. Moomer though, Primal Rage, this is where it could get a little bit scary. The Transcenders popped on the high ground by Crimzo. And Moomer says no, we're not giving your team the rest of this healing. Now I'm going to chase
The one thing I do like about this, and just rewatching it now, is
the high ground by Crimzo.
Barney actually leaves Crimzo. He notices that he sees the Transcenders, he doesn't sit around, he just leaves. Whereas, like I said, I probably would have preferred if he didn't use this Transcendence, put a Discord on Moomer and just started smacking away, so that when Moomer wants to leave, he's already on low health. He doesn't have to take damage later. He's already got damage taken. Even though you're going to commit 2 people to the one thing, I think that probably would have been the right play there.
Primzo, and Muma says no, I'm not giving your team the rest of this healing. Now I'm going to chase you down.
So I mean, like the moment you come out, the moment he comes out of trans and puts the Discord orb, starts shooting, immediately Muma drops like 300 HP.
And Muma's spending his whole time in the backline being the aggressor here, probably a nice change for him over what he's...
I mean, Raucus still gets the nano off on Muma to save his life, but there was a lot. There could have been. This is when Muma jumps out around.
His whole time in the backline being the aggressor.
He takes a lot of damage, and then he gets the nano. If he had been taking a lot of damage just to begin with, you would have had a possibility of killing Muma before he touched the ground and gets that nano.
That's changed for him over what he's been playing this week.
This is a really good spread out of ults and shields from Moth. If you look at Sinatra, so Moth has ult now anyway. He can drop this at any time. Hydration's really low, probably not going to save him now. But he waits until Sinatra loses his personal shields and then uses the Lucio beat. So that he doesn't stagger this and waste that value that Sinatra's already gained for himself.
Here, probably a nice change for him.
You see what I mean? Immediately, it's like he still had tiny bit of shield, but not much.
Here, probably a nice change for him over what he's been
So that was
this
really
week.
good. And I think that these two basically just basically enabled the rest of their team to finish this fight and win.
Gets out the cannons, finishes the job on towards XQC, and Shortfall now's in a bit of trouble, trying to dog dodge and dive away. It won't be enough. Note City on the point here, getting hacked immediately. He can't do a thing except fire the auto cannons, and now it's desperation. Canada throw themselves at the point to try and at least have a presence there.
The only real kind of mistake, not even a mistake, the only real thing I can say here is that Raucus probably didn't have to use nanos so early, and Moth would have got that beat down to save Muma in time, and then you could use the ult to keep Muma alive and keep the damage going. At the same time, this is like one of those little things, and it's probably one of those things where it becomes a bit more of a dangerous situation if Raucus doesn't commit to it and doesn't use it just to make it 100% sure the teammate doesn't die. Simply because you don't want to be one of those people where it's like you have the ult, you know someone's going low, you know your support's about to use his ult, but you can either save him now or you can risk the extra second and see if Moth saves him. And you don't want to be that person where it's like you lose it sort of at the last second, Muma's going to die, so you press your ult, and then the sound goes off, you lose your ult, Muma still dies. That happens to me personally in comp, and I always feel bad. It embarrasses me a little bit. I feel like an idiot. Don't do it. If you think they're going down and the fight's going in your favor, and if you use this, it's just going to be more in your favor. I mean, it's one of those cases. Better safe than sorry. And from here it's basically just a brawl, target calling. Everyone's doing really well. One team to say, to be honest with you. Everyone's just doing exactly what they need to be doing.
Throw themselves at the point to try and at least have a presence there. But an EMP seems to just be for good measure. Shortfall sleeping on the job. He probably wants to close his eyes. He doesn't want to see any of this.
The last bit as well is you can see sort of just the aggressive hold from everyone. So the minefields, he's got nothing else to mine, but he puts it in a position where it's like if they want to push through main, they have to go through the mines. Space pops ult late. They just guarantee that this point is theirs. There's no mucking around. There's no let's just go ham and throw our ults in there and risking anything. It's just nice, clean.
There's not much
just
reason
win it
to do so. There's mines in the way. There's a lot of angry Americans, and that's going to be the map.
And that's it. So basically, this, the Canadian defense, again, they were basically dictated to when they can use their ults, how they use their ults by USA, and USA was just choosing what fights they wanted to take, how they wanted to take it, without really worrying about what ults they're going to have to counter what we're doing. Didn't really work that way because USA basically said, I don't want to deal with this ult in the next fight if there's going to be one, so I'm going to get it out now. And they would immediately just go and do that, or Muma would go out of his way to make sure that happened. pretty much consistently throughout the entire map. And often they would trade maybe a lower value ult to do it. Like for example, Primal Rage for Trans. That's a pretty good ult to trade. And this method of control from Team USA basically shows, in my opinion, just a very high Overwatch IQ, which, I mean, we have to assume so. These are Overwatch League level players all together on Team USA, the best sort of 6 in their positions, for America anyway. And I mean, this is their job. This is what they do. But these are things in which sort of players have to make calls based on situations that probably Aero or even Jane, coach for Canada and coach for America and Canada respectively, can't really make these for the players on set plays. You can't set play a situation. You can only teach the theory, and you kind of teach that sort of by examples, practice, and then testing. So like for example, you give the theory, you give an example in discussions, make sure they kind of understand it, have them practice that in scrims, and purposefully try to put them in the situation or get them to think about the situation when it comes up. So before scrims you might say, this is what we're going to do, this is what I kind of want you guys to focus on. And then once that's happened, you come back, you have a VOD review session, and you test how they went in achieving that result. Did they do it? Did they fail at it? Did they kind of understand it? Do you need to go back and re-explain the theory? And you just review it and you repeat that situation until it's really ingrained. And I think Aero has done a wonderful job. Team USA has done a wonderful job at that. I think Jane maybe has a couple more players who just don't have as much experience as Team USA, in terms of their Overwatch League. They 8 hours a day scrimming, they get paid to do it. Whereas Team Canada has a few members who one, haven't been playing as competitively as they could, XQC, haven't experienced the Overwatch League yet, are maybe only just getting into the Overwatch League, and they can still scrim for long periods of time. There's still money in contenders at the end of the day, but it's not 100% the same. So I think Jane probably had a bit of a harder task, but Aero just showed, and Aero just released more of his players because of they kind of already understood a lot more than probably what Jane had to teach at the end of the day. That's kind of my theory on it. I'm not sure if that's 100% true, but that's kind of how it feels, is that USA took advantage of the fact that Team Canada has less experienced players on their team. But otherwise, yes, that was Game 2, Kings Row. Game 3 will probably be tomorrow. My friends, have a wonderful day. And thank you for watching.